Hello and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. My name's Phil. Joining me as usual, I've got Rohan. Rohan, how you doing, mate?
Hey, good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. This podcast is sponsored by Home Business Cloud by Nabucasa. For a small monthly fee, you'll unlock powerful features like secure, effortless access to your system from anywhere, your choice of voice assistants, offsite backups, and more, all configurable in the UI with no YAML needed. It also supports the development of Home Assistant, ESP Home, and other Open Home Foundation projects. For more information, click the link in the description. Today, we are joined by, I guess, someone that, or a company that, I think is very well known in the home assistant community. Doug, you're from Shelly. Thank you and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Um, so Shelly, as I said, is very well known in the home assistant community. I think you wouldn't take you very long in browsing around the home assistant community forums for a Shelly product to be recommended from someone, a Reddit thread. I guess, would you like to just give us a little bit of for those that don't know Shelly, which I guess in the community would be rare, wouldn't you give a bit of a background on yourself, what your role at Shelly is, and who Shelly are?
Sure. So my name's Doug, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Shelly USA. We're the U.S. subsidiary of Shelly Group, which is the manufacturer of Shelly products. For maybe 25 years, I was a software engineer specializing in test. Then I moved into this position. I've been with Shelly formally since February of 2020. That's when we opened our U.S. office. And it's probably been the most rewarding job in my entire career. I've done a lot of different things, a lot of different areas, but working with Shelly has been an absolute dream job. What I do is sales engineering. And if you're not familiar with what that is, I teach companies how to integrate Shelly products into their offerings. That might be helping them find a hardware solution or teaching them how to use Shelly APIs to control Shelly products and, extend their offerings that way. So I get to do a lot of fun projects. I build a lot of stuff. I learn a lot of stuff. And so what was really a hobby for me for many years, starting in the X10 days and then moving through Insteon, Z-Wave, Zigbee, and so on, it's now my work. So
Right.
I get to oversee a lot of projects like that. I have my fingers in a lot of different pies because we're still a small company in the United States. So everybody has to wear a lot of hats. So
Yeah.
that's my background, and that's the Shelly USA background. The big picture of Shelly is primarily we control electrical circuits. So that might be a line voltage circuit like lights or outlets or sockets, depending on where you're from. It could be a low voltage circuit. It could be something like your HVAC system. It could be a pump. It could be any number of things. But we give you ways to control electrical circuits and then integrate them into your smart home platform. We have sensors. We have energy meters. We have a number of plug and play products like smart plugs or bulbs, depending on your market. So what the big picture of Shelly is, we believe in privacy.
Mhm.
Our take on, for example, GDPR compliance is we just don't collect data about you. We have a cloud available. It's optional. It's free. It's private, but you never even have to use it. In fact, you don't have to use Shelly's app to use Shelly products. Each of them has a built-in web server, so you can connect to it and do all of the configurations. You don't even have to do that. You can control them using API commands if you're that kind of guy. And believe it or not, 90% of the home automation at my house is done with me sitting at my MacBook and I'm typing commands into a web browser. I
Yeah.
send rep commands through the browser and I'm done. Sometimes I use curl if I have to, but normally I'm just sending a REST command through a browser. I might type it out in Notepad and then copy paste just to make sure I've got the syntax right. And your browser can change the URL on you. So there's a lot you can do with Shelly. It's easier to just sort of make that big blanket statement than to try to list hundreds or possibly even thousands of potential use cases. But the big thing is we control circuits, we measure electrical consumption, we have sensors that can measure the environment. That could be motion in a room, opening or closing of doors and windows, temperature, humidity, whether gas is present, a leak is present. We have a number of different types of sensors, and you can use these to trigger automations inside of the Shelly ecosystem, inside of Home Assistant, or any number of other platforms. Does that cover it fairly well?
I think so. I think underselling just the local or the local first of Shelley a bit there. I think Shelley was really made a name for themselves in the home assistant community for being so local first and tinker friendly, right? Like having all those APIs exposed, not hidden behind things. I think really allowed the home assistant and open source community to really embrace Shelley, and I think that's been a really big strength for Shelley.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, and this isn't the official company line. Of course, we're a publicly traded company in Europe, but my personal point of view is that without the Home Assistant community, we wouldn't be what we are today. You're certainly Home Assistant users are the largest group or demographic of our customers. So we're very grateful. I don't know of anyone working for Shelley who isn't grateful for the relationship we have with the Home Assistant community. Um, as you said, we are very focused on local first and privacy. Our APIs, like you said, they're very well documented. In fact, you can actually see examples of how to trigger each command in our API docs. So it's all out there and it's license free. You don't have to sign any sort of agreement to use it. And the very best thing is, as I mentioned, we do have a free cloud that's private. We have an optional premium service that gives you some extra features, but those are on top of what's included in everything you ever need is actually included in the free cloud.
Mm.
But if you don't want to use it, you can actually put Shelly products on an isolated VLAN on your network and they never touch the outside world.
That's perfect. And still functions at 100%.
100%. At my house, I
Yeah.
normally have my VLAN closed. I
Yeah.
the one exception to that being time, an NTP server. And
Yeah.
my take on an NTP server is I've got a little box with a GPS sensor that's stuck in the window. It always knows what time it is. It's local. It's plugged
Yeah.
into Ethernet, and my Shelly devices get that. So the only time I ever open the VLAN is if I want to update firmware or if I'm testing something for work. Unfortunately for my wife, we are kind of guinea pigs for whatever I think of on a given evening. So
Yep,
Yes,
I get that.
that's how it always works, right? And again, it's funny because you described your role kind of as a sales engineer, right? Which again, I am too, which means you're labbing up everything, and I mean, yep, and you're in the automation space. I'm in the network space, so when stuff breaks here, it's usually getting yelled at because the TV is not working anymore, or something like that. Because I took down the internet. Yeah,
well, my listening to my wife yell at a voice assistant because we've got a 6-year-old. He loves music, so the easiest way for her to have music
yeah,
is either Siri or Alexa. And so
yeah,
I just like when something's not working the way she expects and she gets mad at it, and it's a fun.
yeah. Well, mine's usually she gets mad at it, then she gets mad at me, and then it's just a whole
Yeah.
thing. No, I mean, one of the cool things I think I didn't realize until we chatted, Doug, at CES initially in January was a lot of your stuff is also certified, which I think is huge, right? Like you guys do your UL certifications, or I think is it just UL, or is it a couple of them that you guys go
So
after?
we have one product that's ETL certified.
Hmm.
And all of our core products have UL. We're expanding that over time, of course. But right now, we consider the core products of any line to be 1 PM, 2 PM, I4, and the plug. So
Yeah,
those are always certified. Of course, we don't do UL certification for the low voltage products or the sensors.
it's fine. Yeah,
Sensors are battery powered. Low voltage, the power supply is certified. Um, but that is expanding over time, and we also do your FCC certification. We have just
yeah,
announced with Nabukasa that 5 of our Z-Wave products have been certified for works with Home Assistant, We
Yes.
pursue certifications all over the world, but we tend to focus on the ones that are most important. And the Works with Home Assistant certification is important because, as I mentioned, we have a very important relationship with the community, and we want to not only maintain it but improve it. And so we feel like investing in the Works with Home Assistant certification program is a critical point for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And today you said that's your Z-Wave products.
Right. But
I
they're
believe.
not
Yeah.
the only ones. You
Right.
know, this is just the start of the journey.
Yeah.
Um, we've got our relay products. We've also got our Bluetooth products, which use the BT Home protocol. Um,
Hmm.
that's a very big deal for us. And you could buy a Shelly Bluetooth product and never have another Shelly product. You don't have to use our relays to be the gateway. They'll work with any
Right.
Home Assistant compatible gateway, and Home Assistant just recognizes it. I've heard any number of people tell me it showed up in Home Assistant, and I didn't know what it was. And then when I brought the mail in, it was in the mailbox.
Oh, that's
It's
That's
that easy.
funny.
cool. Yeah.
So, for example, Shelly Blue HMT, the humidity and temperature sensor, Blue Door and
Yeah.
Window, Blue Motion. We've got a number of other Blue products, and I typically do not announce them early, but we've got some very interesting and exciting Bluetooth products coming out, you know, very, very soon. I mean, they're about to hit the
Nice.
warehouse shelves. And at that point, I think some of these are maybe products you never expected us to have.
That's cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what those are and how they work. And to your point, those are also going to be on that same stack, which again will work through Bluetooth proxy or native Bluetooth on Home Assistant.
Absolutely. And
Very
the
cool.
interesting thing is some of these have already shown up. I get to test a lot of products. That's one
Yeah.
of the really fun parts of my job. If there's something that I've got a lot of experience with in the past, or if there's something specific to the US market, the guys in R&D are so generous in wanting to let me help test and give feedback, and they actually listen. So that's a
Yeah.
very cool part of the job. But one of the interesting things is, I do, I've got Home Assistant Blue here at the office. I've got yellow at home. And all the time I pick up stuff that I'm testing and I'm like, that's already there. And it's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It is pretty, and then just seeing it pop up, being like, "Hey, it's
Yes.
here," is that's kind of cool too. It's
That
it's a
supports
nice
even in the
experience.
Shelly app.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the power of
Yeah.
open source, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I also like the way like Shelly is uh, cross protocol as well. Like I remember I was looking at one of the EM power modules, the power sensors, and I think it supported like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and then on Wi-Fi it had like API endpoints. And does it have MQ? Am I missing MQTT? Might be there.
so I can give you the full rundown because it's actually pretty impressive at this point. Um, so REST, WebSocket, UDP, MQTT, all of those with support for TLS 1.2. Bluetooth. Now, I need to make a clarification here because this is something that sort of confuses some people. Every Shelly Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4 Wi Fi or Ethernet product has a built in Bluetooth gateway. Now, we even have Bluetooth, we've got our RPC over Bluetooth, but we don't have that sort of built out for you to control a Shelly product. I think we've got an example project on our repository that you can use, but you can't directly control Shelly devices through Bluetooth from, say, the Shelly app. You could do it. It's just going to take you a little legwork to do it. But Bluetooth, Matter, with Gen 4, we added Zigbee. So that's all in the Wi Fi products. We also have KNX. For the EM products, we have Modbus. So
Wow.
this is impressive. The number of protocols that you have under the hood of just one little relay.
And little relay, like
Yeah.
the
Right?
size of those things, right?
Tiny.
As a matter of fact, I
Yeah,
happen to have the Dolly dimmer right here because I just picked up a couple of drivers and I want to do some testing. That's the
yeah,
standard size for a Shelly relay that we call these the in-wall relays or the retrofit relays because they install
Yeah.
behind an existing switch or outlet in your wall box. We also have the DIN rail relays that would mount on DIN rail. And we have what we call the minis. The minis are slightly smaller than these, but they also have a lower amperage capacity.
Yeah.
Um, so we have all of that built into it. And on top of it, you have a JavaScript editor to write JavaScript code and do scripting on the device.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up actually, because last time we were chatting, you mentioned that and how you can actually do even automations and things like that uh,
Yeah.
on device, right? So um, yeah, let's dig into that a little bit. So it's got a JavaScript interface. How do you interface with that? Is that just through the web portal, or is it
There are a
through?
couple of ways. You can do it through the web portal or you can do it through the app. We also
Yeah.
have, if you're cloud connected, we have control.shelly.cloud, which is a browser-based interface that looks just like Shelly Smart Controls interface. So you've
Okay.
got different ways to access the code editor, and basically in the app or the browser, you'll see a little bracket, a set of brackets, for coding.
Hmm. Hmm.
For the device's web interface, you would go to the scripting menu. We've got an extensive library of example scripts as well. So when you go to the scripting menu, you have the option to create a new script or to open the library. Well, to give you an example of some of the things that you can do with scripting, this is actually kind of just a simple script, but it's very, very cool. If you've got a product that does dimming, you can actually connect multiple Shelly products through a script called in-way dimmer. So it can handle up to 5 different dimmers, so up to 5 ways, but they don't have to be the same product. So for example, you could have a dolly dimmer, a 0 to 10 volt dimmer, Shelly plus wall dimmer, plus RGB and say Pro RGB WWPM. So you could have this group of 5 products, and when you change the dim or brightness on off on one of them, it can synchronize all of the others. So all of this is completely local, device to device, no cloud, no hub, no nothing, just the devices, because they're intelligent at the point of control. And so the ability to take this, and you can set up these small groups. I like to have sort of layers of automation. There are different tools that are good for different jobs, but I like to do it at the very lowest level as much as possible. So, for example, as long as my Wi-Fi is working, most of my automations are going to continue to. Then when I sort of combine them with other things, for example, I can't control my smart TV with a Shelly, but that's where I would use something like Home Assistant. So I want to, when my TV turns on, I want the lights set to a certain point. If I trigger one of the lights in that group, the script combines all of them and it's all done locally. Or I could do it as a lighting group in Shelly Smart Control. I could do it as a group of devices in Home Assistant. I've got many different ways to skin the cat, so to speak.
Mm.
But
That's
having the
cool.
individual toolbox is a very powerful
Yeah.
feature for us.
And it's important to note you don't have to use that JavaScript editor because again, it's a variety of listeners here, right? So from the
Yeah,
most technical code savvy folks to the exact opposite of that, whatever that looks like, right? And which is probably the side I'm on, right? But it is cool, and what's neat is again, especially with like ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those kind of tools, you can kind of fire up and be like, hey, write this script for me to locally synchronize, make these two relays act like it's one circuit, right? And
right. I would actually
bam,
recommend against that, though. I
yeah,
would use
okay,
the
it,
chip library. What I found with
yeah,
Perplexity, with Gemini, with ChatGPT, they tend to invent API calls.
awesome,
I
yeah,
even say, here's the URL for the Shelly API. And I even point out this API call, blah, blah, blah. And it still invents what it wants to invent. And
hilarious,
anyone who
yeah.
doesn't know any better, they might show up on, say, the Shelly USA subreddit saying, hey, your scripting doesn't work. Look at this that I created with ChatGPT. And I'm like, well,
Fair enough,
we'll
kind
need
of.
to implement those calls for you, bud. So,
Yeah,
you
and that's fair, right? And
yeah,
but again, the point is, if you do understand that stuff, you can totally go deep in. Otherwise, just leave it at the Home Assistant layer and kind
right.
of keep it there, right?
There's actually something that's another option. And we
Yeah.
just did a webinar on this, and it's available on YouTube. This was last Friday. It's called Virtual Components. So,
Hmm.
um, starting with Shelly Gen 3 and also through Gen 4, we have what we call virtual components. We have BT Home components, but what these are, it's sort of a bridge between, say, creating scenes using Shelly Cloud. and using our servers and scripting. You've got the ability to say, take a Shelly relay, a Gen 3 relay, a Gen 4 relay, and connect it to, say, a Bluetooth device like Shelly Blue Motion. And you sort of bind that Blue Motion to the relay, and you say, when this event occurs, do this. And it's all visual. You've got a graphical user interface to take you through this and to show you the different options. But it's now completely local. It's happening over Bluetooth. There's no cloud involved, but you don't have to write a script. You don't have to know JavaScript. You don't have to get one of your buddies to help you with that. And that sort of helps bridge the gap. You can't do the insanely awesome things that Home Assistant can let you do. But if you're not familiar with it and you're not at that point with Home Assistant yet, you can still get some solid functionality. I want this light to turn on when there's motion in the room. Well, the easiest way to do that is with virtual components.
Mm. This sounds all very similar to, so in the Z-Wave world, you have bindings, right? You can bind a
Yes.
motion sensor to a dimmer or a smart switch and say, when a
Yeah.
motion sensor is activated, switch on this relay. And this is and then that's no hub involved, right? Home Assistant, any other hub doesn't, it's all on the Z-Wave
Right.
protocol. This is very similar, right? Like you take Home Assistant out of the mix and those scripts or actions that you've just written are all done
Yeah.
on the device independently, which
Yeah.
there are some valid use cases for, right?
Right. Well, the most valid use case is eliminating points of dependency.
Mm-hmm.
The fewer points of dependency you have in your smart home, the happier your family is going to be with you. And at the end of the day, we want acceptance. Even we mentioned earlier, my wife, she actually hates smart home. She accepts it because that's what I do for a living. And also I have rheumatoid arthritis, so there are times when I have difficulty moving. There are times when I'm hurting and I just want to sort of be a lump in one spot. So home automation is a big deal for me. Before I was properly diagnosed and treated, the winter of 2016 through 2017, it was so bad. I was seeing orthopedists for tendonitis, getting shots in all of my major joints.
Mm.
And if I came home and forgot to turn on lights, I didn't want to get up and turn on lights. I'd sit in the dark until my wife came home.
Wow.
Right.
Yep.
So and the real problem there was I'd moved from a house in North Carolina that I'd completely automated, and I'd written my own custom automation software and VBNet. And then I moved back to Florida, never had time to set things up. And then all of a sudden, I've got a true health challenge, and I don't.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who should have been prepared. In 2005, I was self-monitoring my home security system by getting text messages if a door or window opened when I wasn't home,
Yeah.
long before self-monitoring was a thing. So I
Yeah.
was the guy who should have been prepared for this situation, and because laziness, never having time, whatever you want to call it, I had
Yeah.
not prepared my home, and I'm in this spot. Let me tell you, the second my rheumatologist started helping me and I could move again, guess what? The very first thing I did was I automated all of the lights in the house. You
Yeah.
know, and
Yep.
of course, by then we had much more, in terms of options at that point in life than we did when I first started.
That's cool. It's yeah. I mean, there is some again definite advantages, especially with that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
From being able to control things centrally and or monitor and so on, right? Whatever piece of that you want to take from it.
yeah, and there are lots of things that you can do along those lines. One of my favorite solutions is actually for my grandmother.
Hmm.
She's um, she would have a habit of cooking something and then wandering off to talk on the phone or watch TV or whatever. Large house, and the next thing you know, the fire department is out because the fire alarm's going off. So what we did to sort of remedy that is use an energy meter to measure when the cooktop was on,
Yeah.
and when it's on for too long or after a certain period of time, it would turn on a buzzer, which is
Nice.
actually not a buzzer. It's a strobe light with a little siren, but it wasn't the really loud siren. And then,
Yeah.
that gets your attention. You're like, oh, I need to go back over here and check on this. And
Mm.
it's little things like that that can
Yeah.
keep people living in their homes for longer, that can help people who have some sort of health challenge,
Yep.
interact and just move through the world. And that's a very important thing. And that was done with an energy meter, a relay, a buzzer, siren, and home assistant. That's
That's
exactly
cool.
what that was. And so I've worked with companies that sell solutions for aging in place and independent living, and they have very complicated systems. That was literally a 1 hour setup.
Yeah. Kind of on that vein, you're talking about like, even more like how you deal with some of your customers and stuff like that in the professional space. What are you guys doing in that space? Just again, because in case there are any folks that are looking to do, something more industrial or commercial.
So, one of my more interesting projects, or actually, I should say some, because they've been different companies, but it's the same use case. We
Yeah,
uh, we make a smart plug that is all of the same exact features as Shelly 1PM. So the most recent version for the US is Shelly Plus Plug US. At CES, we announced Shelly Plug US Gen 4, which is coming soon. It's going to hit the warehouse soon, and it's already been announced. So I don't mind saying that. I'm hoping to see the first production of that in the next 90 days or so. I can't guarantee that's when it's going to hit, but um, we use the smart plug for power cycling network equipment. Now, if you're in a retail environment, your employees are not network employees. You don't want them going into the office and saying, okay, that's the product I need. That's the piece of equipment I need to reboot. It's not in their skill set. They do other things very well. This is not it. So typically, retail companies, whether it's quick service restaurants, grocery stores, drugstores, whatever it is, they roll a truck. They send a technician out. For some companies, that they might have somebody in each sort of market area. For some, they have central distribution centers and they do their support from there. And a couple of companies I've worked with, one had like 10,000 locations here in North America. The other had about 2,600. Um,
yeah,
they had central locations that could be up to 10 hours away. One of these companies was spending a couple of million a year just on these truck rolls. And literally, it's unplugging a cable modem and plugging it back in.
yeah.
What they were able to do, they took the plug using, you know, they put their own certificate on it. They used probably one of them used MQTT. I don't know which the other used because they were kind of secretive, about their
Sure.
process for security purposes. If you have customers, you've got payment information and so on. You need to
Yep.
keep.
Yep.
We know the dangers of hacking and data breaches. So one of the companies had a cable modem and a 4G backup. They had a failover switch that would send a webhook to their dashboard. When the failover, webhook was initiated, the dashboard would send back a command to power cycle the device that went down.
Nice.
And it's that simple. Now you're not spending $350 to $500 to send somebody to unplug and plug back in a cable modem.
That's
That was a
cool.
really fun project. Or actually, the
Yeah.
projects were fun.
Because, yeah, like that's something I've always struggled with. Like, I've been in a situation where I've activated a automation that's turned off the Wi-Fi, right? And I've tried to turn that smart switch back on, and the smart switch is on Wi-Fi. So of course, command can't go back through, right? So it sounds like, yeah, with all these different protocols that Shelly have access to, you don't necessarily need the Wi-Fi or the network.
I probably should have expanded on that a little bit because there's some core features for Shelly outside of the APIs. These are locally stored and executed on the device, automatic on, automatic off timers. So let's say the relay is turned off, the automatic on timer can turn it on after X seconds or N seconds. Uh, Schedules, 365-day scheduling on the device. So, and you can have up to 20 schedule items. A schedule item would be on or off, and you can also do uh, reverse the output after X number of seconds. So they were able to program these during the provisioning process. What's more, we have on the Shelly USA GitHub, we have an example script called AutoMagic that one of these companies used to provision all of the devices. It's just a Python script, but what they did, because they had a different SSID and password at every location, they kept those in a CSV file, and it read through the CSV file. It would provision 2 plugs for each location and print out a label for each plug and a shipping label. So literally you had a guy preparing these for each of the stores. He could slap the labels on, throw them in the mail. They'd be sitting at the store waiting for when the guy who was running the project came to install them. And they were able to do a couple hundred stores every week because of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just, and so the provisioning used the APIs, but the command to power cycle comes through the API, but then you've got the timer that says, hey, you turned off, turn back on. And so you don't have to worry about sending that command back. Now, at
That is
my
nice.
home, I'm kind of lazy. I just set a schedule. So every night at 3 a.m., my network gets turned off and turned back on.
That's funny.
What I probably should do is find out why my gateway locked. That's what I should do. Who's got time?
Hey, I mean, if it works, then why go too far into it, right?
Yeah. What I
Sure.
do works,
If you're looking to upgrade your smart home, you can't go past Zeus. Add Z-Wave long range to your home assistant setup with the Zeus ZST39 USB radio. Their advanced technology operates in dual network mode, combining a reliable mesh system with ultra-fast direct device-to-hub connectivity. And with Z-Wave long-range support, you can get coverage up to 1,300 feet or 400 meters, both indoors and outdoors. And it's extremely secure with unique DSK QR code scanning, which you can do directly in Home Assistant. The Z-Wave JS integration in Home Assistant enables seamless compatibility with a range of brands, all working together through the secure, private, and standardized off-cloud protocol. But that's just the start. Zeus offer a range of affordable and innovative devices, including water leak sensors, water valve controllers, smart plugs, scene controllers, and even color paddles. Their Zen 34 remote switch has just been Z-Wave certified, bringing flexible scene control to your smart home. Seamless wall mounting and battery powered, the Zen 34 offers intuitive control without any rewiring. For the best prices on all Zeus products, head over to thesmartesthouse.com. That's thesmartesthouse.com.
All right, Doug. Changing topics a little bit, since you brought it up too, because like you said, you use the Zeus controller at home as well. Let's talk about your house. What kind of stuff are you doing there? I know you mentioned it's usually in a little bit of a shamble. Just again being also a kind
I'm
of
actually trying to keep
production home
stable
lab.
as myself.
Yeah, for more for your
Yeah.
sake.
So,
uh,
I actually I used the Z-Wave stuff here at the office, and at home I use the Wi-Fi products mainly because,
okay,
as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times when I want to adjust something, I just want to shoot a REST command over to it through a browser and not worry about it. I sort of just fire off and forget it.
sure.
Um, but here's what I do. A lot of times I do what's called load shedding.
Mhm.
So I don't have solar, and I am no longer on. Here in Florida with Florida Power and Light, you have an option to use time of use rates, so that during peak demand your electricity is more expensive, and the rest of the time it's less expensive. But as my family's life changed, it turned out we needed to do more during the peak demand hours, so we went off of the program. But what I did, I put either Shelly PM products, which PM stands for power measurement, or EM products, which is energy metering, on all of my circuits. I've got outlets, I've got lights, I've got 240-volt appliances, and I basically wanted to make the most of the time of use rates. So I shifted things like my water heater, my pool pump, my pool heater off of peak demand hours to overnight. I actually had to move the pool pump back into daytime hours because my neighbor wasn't real happy. His bedroom, it was right next to my pool pump. Um, in Florida, we have small yards. So anyway, the idea here is I was using scripts because we've got some load shedding scripts, and I had basically prioritized what was the most important and what was the least important. So I would turn off the least important circuits until I sort of reached what I considered my minimum viable operation. And then when peak demand was over, I started turning them back on. And so I was measuring how much am I using in total. I had a goal, a sort of maximum, and I had what I was willing to turn off, what I wasn't willing to turn off, and it was all balanced. And you can do the same thing with solar, because solar it's sort of a tricky situation. during the morning, you don't have a lot of production. As it ramps up during the day, you get a lot of production. And then it sort of falls off a cliff right when you're going into peak demand when you need to switch back to grid. So using load shedding, you can sort of turn off what's least important and stay on solar longer. Then when you switch over to grid, you keep the unimportant things off. And then when, peak demand ends and electricity is cheap again, you turn on all the other stuff that's, fun and entertaining, but not absolutely necessary. And there are some other things that I do to sort of change my family's behavior. I've got a 6-year-old, lights on everywhere, and he doesn't care. And my wife, she's always busy taking care of him. There were times like when he was little, she'd have a wiggling baby in her arms that she's got to change his diaper, and she doesn't want to hit the light with her elbow. So she'll tell the voice assistant to turn the light on. She goes into the laundry room and she's bringing out a load of clothes to fold, or she's taking clothes out of a hamper in our master closet. These are all times when she's not going to touch the light, or she does, she's not going to remember to turn them off. So I set an automatic off timer on these. And every time she complains, the switch is on, but the light is off, I've won, because I'm not paying for electricity for hours when there's
Yeah,
nobody there to turn the light off. Because here's the thing, they don't see the bills. I pay the bills. I handle all of the bookkeeping, so to speak. So
sure.
I'm the guy who's going, light bill.
Yeah.
So
Classic dad move, right? It's just
classic dad move. And the thing is, if I hear that, I know it's worked. And
yeah,
so, it's a momentary complaint. They're not going to stop living in the house because I've automated the lights.
yeah, yeah,
So that's one thing. Um, in Florida, I've got a pool, lots of sunshine. So if I don't run the pool enough, I end up with green water. If I run it too much, the light bill is higher than it needs to be. So with 365 scheduling, what I can do, and also it's got sunrise and sunset with an offset. What I've started doing, since I'm off of time of use rates, is I just run starting 2 hours after sunrise, and I stop an hour after sunset. And so no matter what time of year it is, I'm getting the pool cleaned, but I'm not having to run it too much. And so those are the types of automations I do. I'm basically trying to cut down on lights, the use of extra electricity. I'm trying to make sure that things are maintained properly. But at any given time, I can look at a circuit and I can see the consumption history and tell, maybe there's a problem. Maybe it's using more electricity now than it used typically for the same amount of time. And that tells me maybe I need to clean an air filter. Maybe I need to clean the dryer filter. Maybe that appliance is old and it's wearing out, that sort of thing.
One of my missions for summer is going to be getting. So I use the Home Assistant Energy dashboard with a Rainforest Eagle on the main, reading the power meter, and so I have a whole bunch of grey unknown usage. And so one of my missions is, put power monitors everywhere, things like the fridge, the NAS, and next thing is going to be like on the circuits where I can't put smart plugs, like on the central heater, or the HVAC system, and just trying to work out where we're actually spending the money. So then I can go, okay, now I know where we're spending the money or where we're using electricity. Now let's, what can we cut back?
I'll tell you, the funny thing is that a lot of times you've got no idea what your biggest culprits are. I'll give you a weird example. Um, my son is homeschooled, so my wife takes him to a lot of educational activities sponsored by the county that we live in, and libraries and other organizations. And there are a series of parks in Palm Beach County that have a lot of educational opportunities. Our favorite is Sugar Sand Park. And one of the things that they do sometimes is they'll do sort of a craft where they draw a design and then they do a 3D print of it. And they did a nightlight, a Minecraft nightlight for the Minecraft movie. And I didn't realize this, but the tiny little candle flame shaped bulb they used was a 60-watt incandescent. And so my son was leaving this on 24/7, and I'm trying to figure out what it was. And so when I tracked down the outlet, I'm like, that's the boy right there. And so swapped it out for an LED. Then I put then I put a relay behind it, and I put it on a schedule. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
it's like And then there's also the phantom power, right? Like you go, oh, why is that circuit using that? Right? Like there's nothing
because
on.
we've got so many things plugged into USB now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I've been doing, irrigation. So believe it or not, I got into smart home because the city of Leland, North Carolina, charges the same for water as they do for sewer. What they do is they say, this is how much water you've used. We're going to double it. And that's your sewage charge. So if you're filling a pool, you're watering your lawn, you're paying extra. And so I tried to say, it's not really fair. We should have some way of designating this because we're not dumping this water back in. You're getting less into your treatment plant than you're sending out.
Sure.
But the solution ended up being controlling irrigation based on how much rain I'm getting. So at the same time I was getting into home automation, I was getting into weather stations. And I tried a number of different ones. I believe it or not, I ended up with a cheap little Accurite weather station because it had an interface that I could use to collect the data, store it in SQL, and then I could do my comparisons on rainfall. And literally the reason I got in was so that I could only make sure that if I had X amount of rain or less in the last 3 days and a different value in amount or less within the last 7 days. And then I would run the sprinklers. And I just kept the running value and I knew how often I'd run them. And that was my program. It took a few months to fine tune it, but that was what got me into smart home. And so now with Shelly, I can use scripting, I can use weather APIs, I can combine data from sensors through scripting or through virtual components. And so we've got all of these things. Even our flood sensors, you could use them in what was called rain mode so that if it is raining, you can not run the sprinklers. So um, there are different kinds of irrigation setups here in North America. I don't know about the rest of the world, but you're typically going to have either an indexing valve which changes zones every time you cycle the power, or you'll have a zone manifold, which has a number of different valves, one for each of the individual zones. So I've got an indexing valve and I've been meaning to convert it. I haven't, but right now I'm running it with a Shelly Pro Relay DIN rail mounted, but we're just about to release sprinkler and irrigation controller
Ooh, nice.
Whoa.
zones. And so we've already ordered the stock. It's coming. So
That's exciting. I just got irrigation done, like, I don't know, like a month, maybe 2 months ago, something like that. And first thing I did is I was looking at your guys' website. I'm like, oh, let's see what we can get. But the only reason I didn't end up going with anybody is just the guy that installed it. He's like, listen, if you just go with, like, he provided a Rainbird, right? He's like, if you just go with this, I can give you 2 years of warranty, whatever. Otherwise, I can't guarantee my work, whatever. I get it, right? He doesn't know if something fried something. And I was like, great. So 2 years is my counter. After that, I'm switching it out. Rainbird's fine,
it is.
right? But it's a little minimal in terms of its integration back into Home Assistant. So it's that's a good option for, I guess, a year and 3/4 from now.
Well, what I did was I replaced a mechanical timer. So
Yeah,
my house is vintage 1978. And
nice.
so everything had mechanical timers, the pool, the water
Yeah,
heater, the irrigation, everything was mechanical timer. And
yeah,
that's really the easiest to change out with a relay. Uh, you know,
yeah,
maybe you're using a contactor, maybe you're just using the relay, but you're just changing it.
yeah,
And the nice thing is now I never have to find the key to a padlock, open a
Mm,
box that might be buried behind a stack of something, and then pull pins and drop the pins because I can't hold anything. My
yeah,
grip is dry.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
so irrigation, that's a big deal. And we have a branch that we call ShelleyX, and ShelleyX specializes in working with third-party companies to take our module, our chip, allow you to integrate it into your product. And now you've got access not only to our features and our APIs, but also our integrations with all of these over 100 plus platforms that we work with. You don't have to figure out an app, you don't have to figure out a cloud, and you don't have to figure out your integrations. You basically go to a portal and say, okay, this pin handles this pin handles that, and so on. And the next thing you know, you get 10,000 or however many thousand units of the module, and you have it assembled in your factory. And now you've got a smart product that's compatible with virtually every platform in the world.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I didn't realize you guys did that. Had that
yes.
side of it. That's neat.
So ShelleyX does, like I said, the irrigation. It does. We've got thermostats for Europe. We have water valves, which I'm hoping to get US versions of those water valves. We've got we do a 25 amp relay with Augenray, which we've just started selling in the US, which is good for 20 amp circuits. Because we have not had a product for that, and a lot of people are a little confused because our national electric code allows you to have 15 amp products if you've got multiple outlets on on an outlet circuit. If you've just got one, it's got to be 20 amp. But a lot of people think, well, it's a 20 amp circuit, everything's got to be 20 amp. So having this product sort of eliminates some of the confusion and lets them, without having to realize I can use this, they say, well, I can definitely use this. So that was a big deal for us getting that product. And
That's interesting.
you know, ShelleyX is a very exciting product line for me in the B2B side of things. So I'm very happy that we've brought this along. It's a huge deal. It really is.
I mean, you must get a lot of feedback from customers, like both on the business side and customer side. And you mentioned before about the use case for the turning the computers off for businesses. What's some of the what would have to be like one of your crazy ideas that you've heard someone come at you with, like, oh, I'm trying to automate this with Shelly and it's not working. Like, how have you thought? Whoa, that's
So
crazy.
this was actually pretty cool, and it worked. We had a customer who used our this was Gen 1 products. He used 1 p.m.
Yeah.
to control a fan, and H&T triggered 1 p.m. in grain silos,
Ooh,
basically to lower the
Okay.
humidity in the grain silo. Humidity hit a certain point, they turn on the fan to vent and pull fresh air in,
Uh,
and they had a 4G router that was mounted right outside the fan, so you could
yeah.
get Wi-Fi signal into the sensor and to the relay, and then it would connect cellular. So that was a very cool project. Um, another one, I had a use case. What happened? We had some really bad winter storms in Houston a couple of years back, and they believe it or not, the cannabis industry lost tons of money because of destroyed crops. These guys are
Right.
sitting at home in the ice storm and they think, hey, my generators are kicked on and everything's fine. Generators didn't kick on and everything's frozen. So
mm,
at the same time, I had a tech partner who works with some public schools who was telling me, hey, the power will go out at the school overnight. By the time the administrators and the teachers come in the morning and find out, hey, the power is out, it's too late to notify the parents.
Right.
And especially in very hot or very cold weather, it's a nightmare because the kids can't sit there and suffer, but
Yeah.
parents are already gone to work. It's a a complete disaster. And so both of those both of those partners came to me with these problems. They wanted to know when the power was on. And believe it or not, you can take the battery backup that you've got your Wi-Fi router plugged into,
Yeah.
plug in a Shelly plug there and a Shelly plug on the wall, and run a script to tell, hey, you've still got power. Or when it
mm.
can no longer reach it, it can send notifications. And I actually duplicated it with like a little free MQTT app on my phone. So I just to do a demonstration, I wrote up using Hive MQ. So it's sending to the broker, and now when the power goes out, it can't reach the plug. It sends a notification, and so literally you do it with two plugs, a free app, a free MQTT service, and you can find out if the power is out at your business or your mom's house. If, say, for example, she's got medical equipment that she relies on, or at the school or wherever. So just two smart plugs or a smart plug in a relay or whatever, and you know whether the power is on or not. And you might think, who cares? Power comes back on. But in some cases, it can be life or death.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. If you're to your point, like especially with elderly folks that might have specific, right? You don't even have to be elderly, but just
No,
specific conditions, whatever it is, right? Where you may be at home, whatever, with some sort of a machine, some sort of whatever that you need that, right? So
Yeah.
especially I remember when we had the kind of blackout nationwide kind of, or North America wide kind of blackouts and stuff like that. I remember I was a kid when that happened, but that was a big fear of a lot of people, right? And it's and yeah, hospitals and those kind of folks get fuel delivered to them, right? Priority one,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
funny. It's
like
hospitals and data
shower,
centers.
you know,
Yeah,
and if it's a big problem, and the thing is, my wife's parents live a block away from us, and in our condo, and we're able to go over and lend a hand. But I'd still like to know if there's a problem, and what if they
yeah.
can't get in touch with me?
Well, that's it.
You
That's
know,
it, right?
so
And
there are
yeah,
things that you can do to sort of just take that away. It's no longer a problem, and
yeah.
if that's worth spending 30 minutes with two plugs and a script, it's peace of mind.
It's yeah, I agree. And it's a relatively low cost problem, right? And
Yeah,
relatively easy enough to figure out solution, right? And it's yeah,
yeah,
I actually really like that type of use case. Again, I'm a big fan accessibility and understanding, that kind of stuff, right? So which is really cool.
yeah. The really interesting thing is how capabilities have grown. And,
Yeah.
if you look, I got my first Shelly product in the summer of 2018,
Mhm.
7 years ago. And
Yeah.
Shelly just had their seventh birthday. And the products back then I thought were absolutely astounding. And this is
Yeah.
as I was a consumer.
Yeah.
So, unofficially, I started with Shelly in the summer of 2019, officially in the beginning of 2020. So, well before I even dreamed of having this as a job, I'm thinking these are so cool. And I remember when a friend of mine, Carrie, and we first sort of were talking with Demeter back when everything was small and it was a much tighter community. And we're talking about how, you know, the reason most people install Tasmota firmware on these relays is so they get MQTT.
Mm.
And then a week and a half later, he's like, "Hey, can you test this firmware? Had MQTT in it." So
Right.
it's a very nimble company. It always has been since the beginning. But that specific problem with the the agricultural use case with dealing with power
Yeah.
outage and freezing weather. I tried a half dozen different things on my workbench trying to come up with something. We didn't have scripting yet. And then within a month of having scripting available, I realized, wait, I can go back to this problem and now it's a portable solution.
Yeah.
And you do it like that. You don't have to wire up something funky to try to figure out if the
Mm.
power is on. And you don't have to jump through all of these hoops. You've already got a battery backup for your network. You know, you've already got that at your business.
Yeah.
So literally just getting the two plugs and popping one in the wall and one on the battery backup.
Yeah.
So the way that we grow, the things that we had, they might seem small at the time, but like we add KNX into the firmware. And
Hmm.
there are no big bands with trumpets and tubas marching down the street saying, "Hey, we've got KNX now." But now there are panel shops here in North Carolina in North America, not North Carolina. I'm from the backwoods of North Kakalaki, fellas, so it slips somewhere. Um, but I was contacted by a panel shop saying, "Hey, we just found out you've got KNX." There
Yeah.
are only four in North America working with KNX, and one of them has already found out and reached out to us. So it's every little addition we add means something to somebody. And
Yeah.
it's just finding out, is this something that the majority of people can use? And if so, let's show them a couple of ways to do it. And if not, how do we get this to the people who really need it? And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
really that's what has become my mission here. Um, and plus, as I was mentioning to Phil before you hopped on, we moved to a new office. And what I've done is I've set up a small classroom here. So whereas before I had my office, we had some logistics operations, which moved to a 3PL service, and I had my workshop and we had, other people's offices. Now it's just my office, a small office where we might ship some things occasionally if we have to send something special to somebody, like somebody testing a product for us. But the main room here is a classroom. I've got four desks, so I can have eight people there. I've got a TV on a cart. I've got a big whiteboard on a cart. and I've got 3 workbenches where I can have up to 9 people wiring Shelly. So the idea is to bring people here and share what's inside of my head and put it into theirs.
Nice. That's
So
Yeah.
awesome. And are those, is the plan that those classes will be available more to your commercial customers, those kind of things, or is it kind of to whatever, whoever, like still working that out?
no, I'm kind of a stickler on this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell somebody you can't come to my class just because you're not a professional electronics installer.
Right.
If you want to come, you can come. I'm teaching Shelly, and I don't care if you're a consumer or you're a dealer or whatever. We do have stuff for dealers, but I'm
Yeah.
going to have classes for consumers. I'll have meetups for consumers.
That's awesome.
I'm hoping to start doing a weekly live stream on Friday mornings. So, and I'm maybe 6 or 8 weeks out from starting all of this.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm just getting caught up from moving to the new office. So there, and this will be specializing in North American wiring and use cases for here.
Yep.
Every country's system is a little different. I wouldn't consider trying to teach Phil how to wire something in Australia. I don't want Phil to get zapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
My electricity hurts. Just
right.
yeah.
But at the same time, if I recall correctly, you have to hire an electrician for installs anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything.
So the majority of the folks that I'm going to be working with will either be professional electronics installers who typically would work with low voltage or with consumers. And it's
Yeah.
going to, I'm going to do a combination of like training for dealers. I'll be doing training for solutions. I'll be live streaming about products and solutions. I'll have meetups for people to come in and meet each other and exchange ideas. And I want to do a meetup every month for Shelly users and a meetup every month for Home Assistant users.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I had a blast with Home Assistant Community Day.
Yeah.
I should have scheduled it for 6 hours, but we did 3. And we had people coming from all over Florida for that. And it was so cool to meet
Yeah.
everybody and talk about ideas. And we even had some guys who weren't even Home Assistant users. There's a HomeKit user, and this guy's absolutely brilliant. Made me feel like a caveman. And
Yeah.
I'm immersed in this stuff every day. And he comes along, and I'm completely blown away because this guy is way out of my class and what I can do. And
Yeah.
so, the ability to meet these guys and share ideas with them and just give them little tips like, hey, did you know we have KNX? Or hey, we've added Matter to all of the Gen 4 and Gen 3 products. We've added Zigbee. Just telling them things they might not have had a chance to find out about,
Yeah.
and let them go from there and see what they have.
Well, it's a nice two-way street too, right? It's you can kind of show them what you guys are about and blah blah blah, and they and vice versa can kind of give you what's in their heads and be like, hey, you know what would be cool is if we could do X, Y, Z, and you guys take that back to your product teams.
If you tell me an idea, I'm stealing it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to turn around and I'm going to write a solution guide with a parts list and wiring instructions and setup instructions. I'm going to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So if you want to keep your idea to yourself, don't tell me, because I'm going to make sure everybody can do it.
That's funny.
What is on, and I know you can't talk about new products, but what would be on Doug's wish list for Shelly in the future? Like, what, if you had your way, what would you want Shelly to come out with as a product in the future?
And, I don't think this is anything that, say Demeter doesn't know, because I started asking for these things back in 2018. The first would be a Shelly wall thermostat for North America. There are very few local wall thermostats that are not Zigbee or Z-Wave. There's one that I know of. It's a good brand. I'm not name dropping, but they use REST APIs. So that would be a solid choice. But the thing is, if we had a Shelly one, we would have the ability to combine it with Shelly Cloud. It would be in the Home Assistant integration. It would have the local control. It would work with scripting. I'd be able to control my relays. And the thing is, I've worked with a lot of HVAC guys, and they use different platforms. But we've also got consumers that are doing HVAC projects. And 24-volt AC is kind of tough for us because we don't have anything besides Shelly plus Uni that can be powered directly by it.
Right.
So what that means is that you have to convert, you have to have a transformer, whether you're converting to 12-volt DC or whatever. and you power the Shelly, and then it can, with a dry contact relay, it can switch 24 volt AC. And that's typically what the HVAC guys do. Um, I mentioned ShelleyX earlier. They've got a dev board with 4 relays. It's powered by 12 volt DC, but the relays are up to 240 volt AC. So,
Hmm.
a lot of HVAC guys use that. We've got a new version of that board coming. And so I think that's going to be really popular in HVAC. We've got a couple of guys I've talked to that are pinging me for it. Um, and um, at the same time, you've got all of the consumers who just want to do one thing. Like a popular one is ERV. So you've got, it's basically exchanging energy by, you got very tight air envelopes in your home. When the humidity kicks up, you want to turn on the booster on the ERV so that it's moving the air a little faster. And I think the first person who did that project in North America that I was aware of was actually Matt Farrell from the Undecided with Matt Farrell channel. And he worked with Mike Salerno, who works with me here at Shelly, to do that. And they did it with Shelly Plus One. And so, basically when the humidity hits a certain point, turns on the relay, hits the boost, and then it turns off after a certain amount of time. Um, Now that has sort of grown into the professional HVAC installers who are not only triggering that, they're triggering the fan on the air handler. They're doing a humidifier or a dehumidifier, depending on what part of the country they're in. All of these things sort of in parallel with the wall thermostat. So long-winded way to get to this. If we have a Shelly
Yeah.
wall thermostat, I would love to see it because then we sort of tie it into everything
Yeah.
and it triggers all of these things. The other thing I would love to see would be a weather station because I am a huge fan of weather stations. I've had
Yeah.
maybe 12 of them over the last 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
my last one died a couple of years ago. It was another Accurite. Well, no, actually, I had a Davis and an Accurite at the same time, and they both died a couple of years ago. The sun here in Florida is pretty brutal on them. So
Yeah.
you know, and because my work has kept me so busy and family life, I haven't had a time to really pick a new one and research what features and so on. Because you got to make sure that if you buy one, it's not just going to be displaying data on a screen. You want to use that data,
Yeah.
and while there are a lot of weather APIs available, there's nothing in the world as important as what is my actual rainfall on the dirt at my house.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's what you need to know. So those would be big on my wish list. And then stuff like a 480 volt energy meter. Because the energy meters we
Sure.
have now sort of top out at 400 volt, and in North America, 480 is a big commercial voltage. So if I had a wish list, those are the 3 things that I would have on it.
Yeah, that's perfect. And just on the irrigation, does Shelly then have like so the weather sensors? Does Shelly have like rain sensors that can then go into your irrigation controller?
The way that I've done it so far with Shelly is I've taken soil moisture sensors and tied them into either a relay with our Plus add-on or into Plus Uni, which is our universal module. Both of those
Mm.
work with a number of different kinds of sensors. And there's a good one wire protocol sensor. I don't remember who manufactures it, but I bought them off of Amazon. I got, I think, 8 of them for $10. And so I was able to put them around the property. And of course, my lawn guy then made a point of getting as close as possible to them and destroying them. So
Yes, of course.
I've got to replace a number of them. But it's funny, if I didn't have those sensors there, I'd have weeds growing in those spots. But
Right.
as
Right.
soon as I put something there, he's like, yeah,
That's funny.
I see you. You're going up.
Because I guess like if you're going for a Shelly weather station, like it wouldn't be much of a leap if you've already got Shelly sensors for the irrigation system. But you
Yeah.
could get, I guess
Yeah.
you could skip, the need for some of those sensors by just going into a weather station.
The really interesting thing, though, is that, I mean, we've got a couple hundred guys working in R&D designing enclosures, PCBs, firmware, app, cloud, APIs, so many guys working together. It's actually a beautiful process. You have a sort of a product owner who oversees the process and sort of coordinates all of the moving parts and makes sure that everything moves along on schedule. So it's really efficient. And because of all of the repeated use of components, whether it's hardware components, software components, whatever, firmware components, we get to really sort of make the most efficient use of our work and reuse and reuse and reuse. But even with that very efficient process, there's only so many products you can make. Hardware takes
Right.
time. So that's where I think ShelleyX has the biggest potential to sort of revolutionize our ecosystem by working with other manufacturers and taking what they do very well, combining it with what we do very well, and then the result is a product that does both very well.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's awesome. Um, just finishing up, I mean, you know, one of the things we all love to ask kind of all of our guests here is favorite automations and like, what kind of led you to them?
Um, this is fine, but we're back to irrigation again.
Yeah.
And again, for me, it was the,
Yeah.
it was the fact that I was just paying a lot of extra money for the water bill to water my lawn because I had a half acre. And so that takes a lot of water,
Yeah.
especially in southeastern North Carolina, where it can be really dry for, a lot of the year. So um, it took a lot of time. But I learned home automation from it. And literally, I've done it the same way for 20 years
Love it.
when I'm whatever I'm using, whether it's a weather API, whether it's a weather station sensor,
Yeah.
my Shelly relay that controls the irrigation is comparing the last 3 days to the last 7 days. Maybe I'm using the soil moisture sensors if something gets too dry and I'm overriding the automation, but I'm using that same automation 20 years later, just in a different platform. And so,
Nice.
we've got a lot of places in North America and in Australia where fresh water is critically short. We've got severe
Yeah.
drought. And at the same time, as people, we want green grass under our feet.
Yeah.
So you've got to sort of balance it, you
Yeah.
know, and that's a big one for me. The
That's awesome.
second most favorite I would have to say would be my load shedding.
Yeah. That's cool.
Like, if people want to give feedback or they've got questions for Shelley, where's the best way to reach out to Shelley?
Well, anybody can email me at any given time using Douglas.Roberson@Shelly.com. And I might not get back to you immediately, but I will get back to you certainly within a day, or at least within a business day, unless like I'm on vacation with my family. You can always submit feedback through our ticket system. And I try to tell people this because it's an important point. I see people on Reddit, in forums, on Facebook, all different places saying, I would like this feature. And that's great for sharing amongst ourselves. But if you want your voice to count, open a ticket at support.shelly.cloud. There's an option for a feature request, and they actually count what you say. So if we've got 130 people that are asking for the firmware to automatically turn off at a certain time of day, you know, just a
Yeah.
dumb example, but
Yeah.
they know that 130 customers want this versus 750 customers want this versus 15,000 customers want
Sure.
this. They know to prioritize the request that 15,000 people are making.
Of course.
But if it's just people saying it on social media, how many people are actually seeing that post? So
Yeah.
by putting in the ticket, giving the feedback, whether it's a feature request, whether it's a complaint about how something works, or a suggestion on how we could ship better, whatever it is, if you put in the ticket, our customer service team can sort of collate the data and make sure that it gets to the right people.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I like that, Shelley is open to, that, right? Like, 'cause there's a lot of companies in this home automation space, you get a smart device and you basically, that's it, right?
Well, we've got something unique, and that something is our CEO, Dimitar Dimitrov. And um, I met and talked with Dimitar before I ever came to work for Shelly. As a matter of fact, I had a job interview with him without knowing it was a job interview. So
Nice.
he is on Facebook every day talking to customers, talking to his customers. He
Yeah.
might not speak to everybody. He doesn't read every post. Nobody's got time for that. There are over 100,000 users on the Facebook group, but he's reading it and he's seeing what people are asking. He's talking to people who have problems. He's making suggestions. And that's unique in our corporate world. And like I
Yeah.
said, he's the kind of guy who he was in North America for CES in 2019. He made a point. Las Vegas is far away from South Florida. He made a point of stopping off in South Florida so he could talk to me. And then a year later, I'm working for him.
Nice.
Nice.
That's cool.
He is a very special guy. He really gets it. And you never know, if he thinks of something, he might not touch it again for 5 years, but it never leaves the back of his head.
Yeah.
And
Which
so,
I like that community mindset too, right?
yes,
It's
he thinks of people
yeah,
before
which is
anything
cool.
else.
It's
So
it's almost that don't forget your roots, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And there's all over the news this year how Shelly Group hit a billion valuation.
Yeah,
He's still very much a people guy.
that's awesome.
Well,
That's
Doug,
wicked.
thank you so much for coming on today. This has been fantastic. It's always good to hear. And congratulations on getting the Works with Home Assistant program started and
Yeah.
going. So,
That is fantastic. I can't wait to see what else comes through next.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys. I
Cheers.
really appreciate taking the time to talk with me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on.